Oh, it's so good to see everybody. It's been a long time for some of you. I'm not calling any names. Great. I'll ask Bob. He's a neighbor, a friend. If I ever want anything electrical done, he helps me out, like changing the light bulb in my microwave. But anyway, he's going to open with prayer, okay?
And let us pray. Lord, we're just so thankful for your love and for your Son, Jesus Christ. And we're thankful for Caleb and the life he led, Lord, following you and trying to please you in all that he did. And we're here today to celebrate that life. And we're here to celebrate his life he has now with you in heaven, God. We ask your blessing on this gathering and on this food in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, there's a couple of announcements that I need to make. One is the food. The best way to do it for this size group is when we get just about to the end, I'm going to tell them, they'll come in, bring the menus, you choose what you want, and then eat, and then we'll finish it up. Okay? And this is our waitress. You introduce yourself?
Hello. My name is Heather. I took care of the last group here. So.
Yeah, but you had help last time.
Yeah, I did. Not this time, so be patient, please. It's just me. So if you guys need anything, just let me know. We'll get it, okay?
Cup of coffee.
Coffee? You got it. I'll be right back.
You want to go ahead and take drink orders? Go ahead and take the drink orders while we're making all the announcements. You need something to kind of sip on. Okay, while she's doing that, my brother, this was my brother's idea. I went ahead and went along with him. Caleb was supposed to dress Western one time, and he bought a pair of boots. I don't know what size they are, but they're to give away. Anybody that wants them can come try them on. I don't know what else to do with them. Okay, and there's also a female pair of boots. Actually, these are his right here. So you can see they're pretty good size. I have no idea what size. They look skinny to me. But if you're interested in boots and you want to try them on, have at it. Okay, I'm going to read a couple of letters. Some of the people who have sent in. You have me on there? Or are you timing that for 28 minutes? Okay. We had this last week too, because we couldn't fit everybody into one room. So this is a different group. We're going to have to go over some of the same stuff because it didn't catch everything. Last week the camera had a timer on it that we weren't aware of, and it turned itself off in 30 minutes. So we missed a lot of it. So we're going to do some of it over again so we can get it on tape. This is a pastor in Pennsylvania, and I'm just going to read excerpts out of a couple of them here. My name is Norman Lawrence, and I pastor a church in Pennsylvania where I first met Caleb and Mary as they came to our church for a financial seminar. It has now been many years since they were here. However, I do remember they did a wonderful job and had such a kind, peaceful way of presenting the information. Can you hear me in the back? Back there, Al? Okay, good. I also learned of a wonderful resource Caleb had authored called Offering Time, which was a series of brief messages pastors could use during that all-important time just before receiving an offering. With the help of Mary, they constructed nearly 4 years worth of messages with PowerPoint and PDF, made the presentation more impactful. He has had a great impact on so many lives, including mine. When I think of Caleb, I think of a man of great faith as well as faithfulness. He loved God with all his heart, and I look forward to seeing him again in heaven. I'm thankful to the Lord for giving Caleb the talents and the gifts to be such a blessing to the kingdom of God. I actually got emails from around the world of people where we'd been when they found out that Caleb had passed. This is from a student of his who later became a pastor. It says, "Thank you for including Caleb's favorite song. When I sent out the emails, I put that song because he lives in it. Caleb has crossed that river and he's left behind a path. We came to know Caleb and Mary in 1966, when the Lord led us to Berean Bible School in Dallas. Though we were there for such a short time, in the big scheme of things, our hearts were knit together forever. The joys of music and the Word of God and body ministry were the strong bonds that kept us connected over the decades that followed. While visiting at the McAfee home, Pam, that's his wife, remembers the look of panic on Caleb's face when he asked when our firstborn, we were going to name her Janai, when she was due. I told him yesterday, and I think we should probably go home." That's the end of the quote. "He assured me by opening the front door hurriedly that we should leave immediately." And she was born almost immediately. Janai soon became a sweet part of Caleb and Mary's life. We also enjoyed the meals that we shared at El Phoenix. Now remember, we were making $25 a week. So to eat at El Chico, even back in the early 60s, was quite a feat. You had to save up for it. So we would go to El Phoenix, where we cold the tortillas and filled them with hot sauce to see how many we could eat. And of course the hot sauce is hot. And what was one of Caleb's favorite foods? Tabasco sauce. Remember that? Any of you who ever ate with him? He put it on everything except ice cream. He didn't put it on ice cream. Wonderful times of discussion related to our reading of Watchman Nee books. And also this was a highlight for us. I'm not going to read the rest of this, it just goes on to some personal stuff. We don't get to Dallas as often as we did in the past, but our phones are great connectors. And up until the very end, Caleb did keep in touch by telephone. He was on the phone a lot with all the different people that we've known. This guy was supposed to have been here today, but he didn't. He came over last night. No, what is today? This is Sunday. He came over last night with his family and brought this. He said, "Get somebody to read it." And he said, "Because we can't be there tomorrow." And he said, "I'm really disappointed." He happens to be a man that we met in a garage in Irving on 6th Street. We had some work done there. Now I'm going to have to, I don't think you can see this, but it's very difficult to read. And so I'm going to, because otherwise it won't make sense. It's interesting. It says, "I met Caleb and Mary at a mechanic shop. They were there getting their car serviced. When the work was finished and it was time to pay," he wrote the word "seen," but he meant the word "saw," of course. "They were being overcharged for the service to their car. That day, after talking with Caleb and hearing him tell me some words of wisdom, it gave me the courage to start my own business. I am now owner of my own business and always work on the McAfee's car." That's true. He was over there yesterday to fix the air conditioner. I found out I had a broken belt on a tire. Does that mean anything to anybody? I must have hit a pothole sometime because I had a belt, one of those in the tire, had broken. And so he had me follow him to a tire station, told him exactly what I wanted. And I got a new tire yesterday. Or no, a used tire. I never bought a used tire before. It's an interesting. Caleb was a man that you did not feel uncomfortable shaking hands with. Now, I thought that was an unusual thought or a comment for someone to say. And I've seen Caleb stick his hand out for people that their hands were full of grease. You know, he didn't draw back from shaking hands with everybody. He said every time their car needs fixing, they came to me. That's true. And if they were unable to get the car to me, I would come to them. So he did. He'd come out to the carport sometimes. But his name is William Dishman. I couldn't think of his last name there for a second. But he wanted me to read that to everybody, and I thought it was cute. Okay. I thought that Caleb had told Heather, Heather, would you and your fiance, Gary, stand up just so everybody can meet you? This is the daughter and fiance of my secretary. Now, where's Kathy? Kathy, you're going to stand up too. She was our secretary for how long?
36 years.
36 years. And she was a good one too. We were able to be on the road all that time. She took care of everything. Yeah, thank you. But Heather, I thought she told me, but she doesn't quite remember it. But when she came over with her mother, she was just a little kid. And I asked her, I said, what did you remember about Caleb? And she said, well, he played the organ. And he did. He had one of those electronic organs, you know. And Caleb was pretty good at it. And but the other thing that I thought she said, maybe she didn't, he was always reading the dictionary. He liked big words. Mike, you know that. He was always pulling big words on us. Well, this is an article. Oh, let me go back. Let me just interrupt this completely and go back just for a minute. You know, when a spouse passes away, and Dan, if you'll tell me when you're going to change it, I'll stop.
We're good.
Okay. When a spouse passes away, the Social Security, if there's two of them, there's two different Social Securities. The Social Security takes the higher amount, right? And that becomes the Social Security of the remaining spouse if it's higher. Well, Caleb's was higher. So in January, I called Social Security, told them what I wanted to do. And they said, well, it's going to be the end of March before we can get to you. And in the meantime, of course, they stopped his Social Security, so who knows what's going to happen to that. But anyway, they said, here's all the stuff. Okay. Boy, that is quite a load there. Great. You know who it goes to now?
No.
How are you going to do this?
No bad. Gary.
Okay.
Next week.
I'll go ahead with the story here. So they sent me an email with a whole list of things that I'm supposed to have for them when they call me at the end of this month. And it included death certificates, birth certificates, tax returns, and the marriage license. Well, the marriage license I couldn't find. I searched all night here about a week and a half ago, and I couldn't find my marriage license. We were married in Dallas County. So next morning, I called the records office, and they said, oh, no problem. You come down. The best way to do it is to have somebody bring you. And they drive around the block while you run in and get it, and we'll certify it for you. Okay. So I get a neighbor. He agrees to go downtown Dallas. And I go in, first in line, didn't take any time. But I walk out of the records building an hour and a half later with no marriage license. They did not have Caleb and I listed in Dallas County as having gotten married 62 years ago. So, what do you do? Attorney? I mean, how do you recreate a marriage license? Or how do you prove it? I guess is the word. So, I thought about it, went home, call my brother in Waxahachie. I thought, my dad, I knew that he had to sign for me because I was only 17. So he had to sign for me anyway. So I called Sam, he lives in Waxahachie. I said, real quick, run down to the records court down there in Waxahachie in Ellis County and see if you can find the license for us. So I'm going to play you what Sammy said last week. He was here and he described what happened. So there's a little video here. I'm just going to play about a minute of it. So, just a second. This was last.
Oh, the microphone down.
I want you to tell them what you told me. That I told you I was going to wring your neck the next time I saw you.
Let me introduce myself. I am Pesky Sam, the younger brother. They weren't very good, so I went down and I found the certified copy of the marriage license. And so I called Mary back and I said, Mary, I said, they don't have any record of you being married in Ellis. And I said, Mary, have you and Caleb been living in sin for 16 years? Tell anybody? Just kind of didn't hear anything. And then I think when you said something that, I started laughing. And of course, she knew that I was messing with her. So I did bring her the original today. So she got the original. So I guess it was straight in the government. And she won't have any problems. But anyway, one thing about Caleb, ever since I've known him, he's always been a man that's been committed to God. I can't say that for myself, but he has always been a man that's been committed to God and serving other people. And there's no doubt in my mind when he passed on that God was there waiting for him. God was faithful and good servant. That's okay, but he's faithful and good servant all of his life.
Okay. Anyway, he teased me about that, and he made me think that he couldn't find it in Ellis County. So it was listed in Ellis County, and I did get it. Anyway, back to Heather and the fact that she would visit with her mother sometimes when her mother came to work. The whole purpose of that thing about the marriage license, I had told everyone, I said, I don't have a whole lot of pictures. We didn't take very many pictures. And I think some people were disappointed. But in the process of looking for this marriage license, I found pictures from the 60s, 61, 62, of when we first got married. And so I created a PowerPoint out of them so you can see kind of where we're coming from and what Caleb's previous life was like. But I found also he had written an article for the Outlook newspaper when he was a senior in high school. And the paper was so deteriorated that I actually had to type it up just by pulling the pages around. Remember, they're 62 years old. So anyway, so let me read this to you, and this did not come out on the tape last week. Okay, this was written October the 20th, 1960. He's going to be changing now. Okay. He's resetting this thing every 30 minutes, I think, right? Okay. Now, I hope I say all these words right, because there's some big words in here. But Heather, if she did say what he said about reading the dictionary, I have seen him read the dictionary lots of times myself. So, anyway. Okay. In thinking of problems which face one being a senior away from home, One in particular rings loud and clear. The zenith and the paramount of my problems can be stated in 2 words: alarm clock. Some have said this ingenious mechanical apparatus is a requisite, others superfluous, which means unnecessary. Paraphernalia. But to me, it's a pernicious, diabolical, fiendish contraption invented by a ghoul to torture the soporific nature of mankind. For 17 years, I have been accustomed to the gentle touch of my mother's hand and a soft spoken word saying, "Caleb, if you please," I'm sure she said this, "arise and greet the early morning sun in all of its stupendous creation." No, splendorous creation, end quote. But lo, now I find myself being rudely and brusquely jarred awake by an unearthly, clamorous clanging that rattles the very fillings in your teeth. When this shocking cacophony commences, I am impelled to make one of 2 decisions. 1, whether to get up and press the button devised to silence this mechanism, or 2, to smash it against the wall. My procedure always followed the latter. Incidentally, I have found it more economical to purchase them by the dozen. However, there usually comes the thought of ham, eggs, biscuits, milk gravy. But then I remember I'm at Southwestern with its hard toast, cold cereal, and I turn over and cover my head. Of course, there have been a few times I have braved the elements and staggered to the mess hall. While writing, I have thought of a way in which man can defeat this long foe, the alarm clock. All you have to do is to set it before retiring, and it won't, don't set it. I'll get this right in a minute. All you have to do is not set it before retiring, and it won't go off. Hey, I believe I've come into something. So, anyway, he loved words, and he was always using big words. Okay. Let me go ahead and change this just a second. I made some notes so I wouldn't go too long here. Okay. This is a slide that a friend of mine, how many of you know Donna Love? You know Donna Love? She was part of our trading group. Well, this was her idea. She said that this reminded her of Kate. So this is what it says here. It says, "To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived, this is to have succeeded." And Caleb definitely lifted a lot of lives and a lot of people. I don't think I realized how much or how many until I started getting responses back. So and this was Caleb's picture. This is what he looked like when I met him. Wasn't he handsome?
Coat and tie.
Huh? Oh yeah, he always wore a tie. That was part of his personage. But he was 18, I was 17. I'm sorry, what? What did you say, Peter?
No, Tom said something.
Oh, Tom. Okay, are you talking?
I just said, if he was 18, he kind of looks like he was 30.
Oh, well, I guess that's good.
He was a mature guy, huh?
Yeah, he was.
Then you go to the liquor store and buy some beer.
Okay. We first met on a field trip to Monterrey, Mexico. Now, first of all, understand this, and I think Caleb probably told you this, that we had an arranged marriage. Do you know what an arranged marriage is? It's where both parents knew each other before, and they kind of stuck you together, and that they had to. They had to sign for us. He was still 18, and I was only 17, and he had just turned 18, so we were quite young. But his uncle taught in a Bible school up in Enid, Oklahoma. His name was Dake, Patty Dake. He taught there. He became friends with my father, who went to school there. And my father was I don't know, what do they call these typists that they can type so fast, they can type as fast as you can talk? What? Well, it's not a stenographer. You actually are typing on one of these old Royal typewriters, the big stand-up kind. That's what he had. And he could talk as fast as Funniest Dake could talk. In fact, they did a whole book that's still in publication. It's on Amazon together. And my father typed with Dake right here to the side of the whole book. Anyway, so my father graduated, later came back and began to teach in that same school. Guess who one of the students were? Caleb's father went to school there. So Dake taught my father graduated, began to teach later, then he taught Caleb's father. Now, at the time, neither family had any children. So Caleb's father went as a missionary to the British West Indies, and he sent Caleb back to school here in the States so he could graduate from a regular school. And he said, I think their name was McCutcheon. I think they had some kids, but I don't know. Just look them up. So, in this field trip that we took to Monterey, guess who looked up who? My mother had made a luncheon, a big head of iceberg lettuce, and Caleb wanted some of it. So he came over, introduced himself. That's how we first met, on our way down to Monterey to this restaurant. Notice the price of the rooms. You can see. Unbelievable. I have a real picture of the building itself. It's a real nice hotel. This doesn't look so good. But anyway, we met there. We met the end of February, and were married the end of May. I don't suggest everyone do that, but it worked for us, only because we had God as the center of our life. It's the only reason it worked. Because we still argued, we still didn't agree on everything, but we stayed together because we had that common bond. And so anyway, we got married, and we were married for 62 years. Now, end of the school year. During the school year, the president of the school came to us. Remember now, we'd just been married just a couple of months. He said, look, there's a guy here. His name is Carlos Escorcia, and he's from Nicaragua, Puerto Cabezas, Nicaragua, and he wants to learn English. Can I put him with you guys? And everywhere you go, if you go out to eat, he goes with you. If you go anywhere, he goes with you. Fair enough. He'll probably teach us some Spanish too, right? Well, anyway, so we did that during this whole school year that we were there. At the end of the school year, Carlos said, look, he said, I want you to come to Puerto Cabezas, and we're going to have a meeting in my church. He was a pastor of the church on the east coast of Nicaragua. He said, you get down here. He said, we'll have a meeting. Well, Caleb jumped at that chance, So after the school year was over, we struck out for Nicaragua. I found out last week when I did these, this is what did not show up on the tape last week. And so I made pictures this time so I can see what's coming afterward. It's helping because now I know what's ahead of me. Okay, so we went to Managua. We drove a car to Managua. And this guy he was at the border. We didn't even know him. We were crazy. He was at the border hitchhiking a ride all the way down through Central America. on the Pan American Highway. He was a school teacher. He had taken off the semester, and he was just going. And so Caleb invites him to ride along with us and be a translator for us. And it worked out real well. Because if you have car trouble, and leave it up to me, I would say if you roll down the window and ask someone where the garage was, garaje means garage. I rolled down the window and I said, ¿Dónde está el conejo? Where's the rabbit? Because the garage that we'd come to previously in Mexico had been named El Garaje Conejo. I thought the name of the Spanish word for garage was conejo. So I was rolling down the window asking for the rabbit. Where's the rabbit? But we had a lot of fun. Anyway, he rode all the way to Manila with us. Then we boarded a plane. You can't really see it. Now these are the pictures I found when looking for the marriage certificate. This plane had spaces in the floor. Didn't have seats, you just sat on the side. And it had spaces in the floor you could look down and see everything going down underneath you. And it was really very interesting and very noisy too. This was Carlos's church. So this is where we spent some time. And then Carlos says, Caleb, I really want to go to Waspam, which the only way to get there, we take a canoe, and then you take a Jeep, and it's on the Rio Coco River. And I want to start a church there. I want you to help me. So Caleb said, sure, why not? So this is Carlos in the middle. I can't, if I'm pointing his name is Carlos Escorcia. He's passed away now. But he was translating into Spanish, and then the guy next to him was translating into Miskito, which is an Indian dialect in the eastern coast over there. So we had the meeting, and this was his church. So we go to Waspam. They built that's the platform. They built the platform. Now, picture this, I had an accordion, Caleb had a trumpet. And down there, I guess it was unusual because you start playing the trumpet on the back of the Jeep and playing the accordion, people start following you. You start driving the Jeep, and they'll follow you all the way to the church. Well, this was in the middle of the soccer arena. So we had a big meeting. It's very unusual because I don't think I've ever seen it here in the United States, but we actually saw a gourder, big, huge gourder, just disappear after prayer. And we saw people blind. They said they were blind. People in the community said they were blind and they could see. They just had such faith. It was just unbelievable. But anyway, so we had to go there. That was our first house. Thatched roof. Okay. This house had been sitting for a while. The alcalde, or the mayor, got born again. And he said, well, you can have that house for $7 a month. But he didn't tell us that it had bats in the thatched roof. And these big black things, okay. So here we were in this thatched roof hut. Now, the house was built with partitions that were just a little bit above our heads for the different rooms. And the bats at night would fly through the area above the partitions. And we were under a mosquito net on an army cot, both of us. That was interesting. Sometimes one would sit up while the other one slept. So anyway, these bats would fall, they'd fly. So Caleb said, look, this is not gonna work. Remember, no electricity, no water, no running water, and a thatched roof hut. So he said, you get on that side of the wall, and I'll get on the other side, and you're gonna hit the bat when it comes your way. I said, okay. Remember, I was raised with two brothers, so I was pretty good at baseball. I had a big umbrella, one of those great big umbrellas, and he had one of these brooms that looked like a witch's broom, real skinny, on the other side of the wall. So I came back and I hit the bat just right on, perfect. and knocked him over the wall. And I heard a ugh on the other side. It had hit Caleb right in the chest. But it knocked the bat out. and so while the bat was laying down on the floor, kind of twitching a little bit, Caleb went ahead and killed him. But we did that a couple of times because we had more than one bat. But anyway, I thought that was funny. So this was this house. I don't know if you've ever been around wood that's really old and moss grows on it. Well, you sit down on the top step here and you just slide down the rest of them. You don't even have to walk down them, you just slide right down them. So that's the way this house was. There's Caleb in the doorway. But we were there for 8 months. And this was part of the crowd here. You really can't see it real well. Here's some more of the crowd. Oh yeah, by the way, the only way to get anywhere, and you had to take a bath at the river, the way to get down to the river was a horse. I'd never ridden a horse. And the horse didn't have a bridle or anything. And when I got on the horse, this town looked like a western. It had the wood in front of the shops, you know, like a western. You see these old westerns. It's exactly what it looked like. Everybody wore pistols on their hips, in holsters. It was just like a western movie set. It was really interesting. Well, anyway, the only way to get anywhere was a horse. Well, I didn't know how to control a horse. And all of a sudden, I was up on that wood in front of the store going into the saloon. I mean, that was the only thing that was there. So, you know, well, anyway, I haven't ridden a horse much since. Okay, this is just some more crap. There we are in the Jeep. Okay. And of course, then you had to have the baptismal. And then the alcalde gave us some land, and they were petitioning off the land here. And here's the church that was built while we were still there. And this is all within an 8-month period. Okay. So, let's continue on. Okay, go ahead and read this. So, these are just some notes I put in here. Both of us came back from Nicaragua sick with hepatitis. We had hepatitis, but we recovered and moved to North Carolina, where Caleb was accepted as a pastor of a church. He went back to college, and I worked for the State Highway Department. A couple of years we came back to Dallas, where we taught in the Bible school. 2 years we were sent as missionaries to start an orphanage and a Bible school down in Monterey. This is the property. And that Bible school and orphanage is still going on. They have about 200 kids in the orphanage. We were down there just a few years ago. So anyway, so that's what we did. Okay, then this is the Bible school that we went back where we started the orphanage. That house, the thing on the hill up there, what used to be an old dance hall, and it was a recreational place. And we closed it in, created a church. Okay. This is what he looked like at that time. This is what I look like. Now, this was Caleb with his favorite pastime, which was playing his trumpet. He was good. Did you ever hear him play, Mike? No. Anybody ever hear him play? Then you neighbors never heard all the commotion sometimes? We used to have 20 people over there and they were all playing and singing. I guess it didn't make too much noise. Anyway, that's him in the corner playing the trumpet. And there he was just having some fun. This guy that he was playing with was a missionary. He had all kinds of different trumpets. He had some that had a trombone effect to it, but it was still a trumpet. Had some that were like little tiny horns. It was very interesting. They played all night, by the way. And this is another guy that he played the trumpet with, but he really liked the trumpet. Okay, so we come back to Dallas after we come back from Mexico, Monterrey. And we started helping a guy start a church in North Dallas. It's called Dallas North Community Church. And we became commercial real estate brokers. I started working for a firm, and then Caleb later, we got our license, and we began commercial property management. And then we had a contest. Let's see if I have that picture here. Well, here's some of Caleb's books that he's written. I'll just cycle through them real fast. These are not all of them to begin with, but the ones that are still on Amazon. Okay, and so during the time that we were in the real estate, we would twice a year take off and go for 2 to 3 weeks and have a seminar overseas somewhere. So anyway, that's how, and then back to the church. This church was up here in Carrollton on Josie. And while we were there, the pastor said, he said, you kind of know how to manage money. He said, why don't you start teaching it to our congregation here? So that's what we did. We just had little handouts, 3 or 4 pages each week. That later became the manual for the seminar. This is what we taught from on the road. And then, I need more hands up here, don't I? He wrote this book.
Mary, are they still in print?
Yeah, you can get them through Amazon.
Yep.
And then this is, this book it's more than just business. Everybody says, oh, it's just, when they take advantage of you, they say, oh, that's just business. No, it's not. It's more than just business, the way we have to run a business. You have to have integrity as part of it. This is one of the favorite. You didn't hear the guy last week, but he was saying how many of these he's given out to graduates. But anyway, and then the pastor always got one of these. And we'll go into this in just a second here. I'm sorry. Now this is one of the trips here that we went to Chile, and then we ended up crossing the Andes by car over into Argentina, and we had seminars there. This was Nick Pino, who was an excellent translator. He would do everything Caleb would do. If Caleb would sneeze, he'd sneeze. If Caleb would bend over like this, he'd bend over like that. But he's passed away. That's a disadvantage when you get older. All your friends go before you do. And that's kind of what's happened to Caleb. This was the tent they put up for us where we started the church. Here, this was in Chile. Here's the inside of the tent. Oh, there, I missed that one, but that's okay. Here's Caleb playing his trumpet. Now, I will tell you, you guys all knew him when he had hair, right? That was a unit hairpiece. He was really bald. And some of these you can see it. And then there's me in the background here. Let's see, Caleb playing his trumpet up here. I played the accordion. This was, we had a contest at a commercial company as to volume of sales in a certain period of time. And we had 30, including the attorneys and the accountants. And the prize was go to Waxahachie if they sold a certain volume amount. Another thing was to go to Branson. And the final, if they sold the very highest amount, was a trip to Spain. That's what this was. We took 30 people, 30 employees and salesmen, the attorneys, everybody, to Spain. That was an interesting trip. Then here's one of the trips to Alaska. We went down through the Ford. Okay, this is just one of the meetings. God equips you for what your priority in life is. And God equipped him to be an excellent speaker. he could move an audience like you wouldn't believe it. I mean, let's put it this way. It's hard to talk about money. People just don't like to talk about money. Well, he had a way of getting their attention with jokes, usually, beforehand. And he'd have them in his hand. They'd listen to anything he had to say. But that was developed, and God gave him that ability. Does anybody remember any of his jokes?
I heard quite a few.
Who said that?
I don't really remember them, but
You don't remember, but you heard quite a few.
every time I'd see him, he had a joke.
Oh, that's probably true. How about you guys? You heard lots of jokes. We ate with him about once a week for a long period, and he had quite a few jokes. Well, I tell you what.
I remember one.
Well, you remember one. Come up here. You have to talk up here. Come here.
So, well, I can talk loud.
Well, you won't be on the speaker.
Won't get recorded.
Come on, we're gonna make everybody be stars here. If I have to do this, you have to do it.
So sometimes he would, I don't know where we were going, but we would be going somewhere, and there's a big cemetery in Irving off of Irving Boulevard. We were passing by there, and he's like, "Do you know what they're all talking about in there?" I'm like, he goes, "Nothing." And then he told me one time, he goes, "You want to hear a dirty joke?" And I'm like, "Sure." I was early teenager. And he goes, "A white horse fell in the mud." So he had those quick, simple jokes.
Well, you know what he would do at these seminars? There would be usually between 500 and 1,000 people that were there. He would be out in the lobby talking to the various people as they were coming in, and he would find out their names, and then during his presentation, he would use their names and talk directly to them. And they thought he had a memory like you wouldn't believe. He did have an ability to remember names, but he would do that. Now, oh my goodness, he's sure got a good memory. But he taught himself to do that, made himself do it. Let me tell you one of the jokes. It was the Farmer Jones joke. This was one of his opening jokes that he used to kind of warm the crowd up. Said, and this usually you do this if you were in some state other than Texas. There was a farmer, excuse me. I think I was on the phone this morning too much because I started getting phone calls about 7 o'clock this morning of people who were sick. We had another 12 or 13 people who were supposed to be here, but they all called in sick, and they sounded pretty sick to me on the phone. So, but we've got plenty here. Anyway, this is Farmer Jones, a rancher in Texas, a rancher in Arkansas, let's just say. The Arkansas farmer said, or the rancher said, "How big is your ranch in Texas anyway?" And the guy would say, "Well, if you get in a pickup truck in the morning and drive around the outside rim of the property, it'll take you all the way until nightfall to get back to the ranch house." And the guy from Arkansas said, "I had a pickup truck like that once." And then his other favorite was Dear Sister Jones. Did anybody hear that one? That's been to his seminars. Some of you have been to his seminars. Okay. New pastor goes into town, and the secretary says, "Oh, you've got to go meet Dear Sister Jones. She's bedridden, and she doesn't get out of her house, but she pays tithes and she listens to your sermons. You just got to go see her." So he makes an appointment to go see Dear Sister Jones. So then he goes in there, and beside her bed was a bowl of peanuts, and he just, started eating the peanuts. And then he realized, oh my goodness, Dear Sister Jones, I have eaten every one of your peanuts. I am so sorry. I'll go get you some more right now. She said, "Oh, no, Pastor. You don't need to do that. All I can do is suck the chocolate off of them anyway." Now, I don't know if this would work here or not. Usually he goes ahead and continues with whatever he was going to say. And maybe 10 minutes or a little more into the presentation, I could begin to hear a snicker in the audience. Somebody was thinking about it. And then pretty soon somebody else would start snickering. Pretty soon the whole place was in uproarious laughter, almost laughing so, they were almost out in the aisles, they were laughing so hard. But that broke the ice and got him, got them relating to him. Okay, now what I'd like to do is to have different ones here share what he meant in your life or something you can remember about him. Now last week I was surprised, I think maybe you were too, Dan. One of the main things that different ones remembered was how he introduced them to Mongolian barbecue. I was so surprised. But every time they'd ask him, where do you want to go eat? Guess what? It was always Mongolian barbecue. And they said, well, we really got to where we liked it. So, and the other thing was on the Tabasco. How many people were so surprised that he liked Tabasco so much. But what I'd like to do is go ahead and call the waitress, let her take your orders, and then we can start hearing from different ones in the group that want to say anything. Okay? So you want to turn that off a minute? Go ahead and finish the slides. Let me just cycle through them real fast. Well, let me do this. Let me go get her and then I'll come back. I'll get it right here. She's going to take your orders by your name, so be sure she sees your name tag so she'll know where the food goes. Okay, let's finish the slides here real quick. Oh yeah, this was our 50th wedding anniversary, and we had been in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in our coach, and we'd taken it in for service, and Caleb had left his wedding ring in the drawer in the kitchen, and we were just positive that it had gotten taken because we couldn't find it anywhere. We looked everywhere. 2 years later, I take in a basket of knitting, wire basket, and I looked in that basket. I said, what's that bright thing in the corner? The wedding ring had fallen into that basket and was sitting there 2 days before our 50th wedding anniversary. So he's showing off his ring. And he really thought it had 5 diamonds in it, and he didn't want to lose it. This was in front of our coach. That's Missy. Hey guys, Kathy, you remember Missy? You arranged for us to get that dog.
Yes.
Remember that? She's a little Maltese. She traveled with us. This was the coach, it was a 40-footer. By the way, if you know someone who would like to consider that coach, I'm going to get rid of it. Okay? Oh, this is Ruby's birthdays. It's a candle on something together. That's what we look like in 2011. Well, this is one of his latter birthdays. This was his best friend. He climbed Stone Mountain. If any of you are familiar with Stone Mountain in Atlanta, he climbed it. I went up on the cable. Here we are, this is in Oregon. I just took these pictures.
Do you still have the dog?
What?
Do you still have the dog?
No, she lived to be 18. But, yeah. And this was, he was playing Judas, playing the church. You see him down in the middle. And he was a runner. Did any of you ever run with him? Nope. Last week there were some that had. This was at the, by the way, today is the run of the Cowtown Marathon today. And he ran that every year. And he ran the one of those. These were his 2 running buddies. They would get up at 6 o'clock every morning, go right around Bachman twice, go to the Whataburger that's over there, and Pastor George would leave $5 for a hobo that was in there, a street person, and then they'd go on to work. Every day for years, they ran around that lake twice. Oh, it's brilliant. How does it go back?
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Jeff.
Tough, right? Hey, Jeff.
Okay, here's what I was going to talk about. These were always given to the pastors. Right here. Go ahead and be getting your meal. The top priority is to keep the top priority the top priority. That was the most important thing in his life, was the priority. And his priority was the kingdom of God. And this says in the spirit of Matthew 6:33, which says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. But I think I wanted to stress that when you come to the end of your life, you want to be able to say, I found the priority in my life by talking to God, praying, being born again, whatever. I found it and I followed through on it. That's the most important thing that any of us can say, that we kept the proper priority during our life, and he did. There's no question in my mind. And I followed right along. So, okay, who has something to say? This is my neighbor across the street, Kenny Sizlove. And you're a drummer.
Thanks, Mary. Well, excuse me. Wow. We've lived across from Caleb and Mary for 23 years. And I've been doing their yard work the whole time, which is kind of how I met you guys. And that's how we found our house too, was I was mowing one day and I saw the for sale sign, and so I was like, wow. And I like the neighborhood a lot, so yeah. I've been trying to do good work for him for a long time, and we were talking about Caleb's jokes, and he always come out, it could be 100 degrees out, but he'd come out and have a joke for me, and always come out to greet me. And I always thought that was really special because, it'd be hot in the summer, but he always came out and said hello to me. And he would ask me yard questions. He'd go, "Are you bagging that grass?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm doing it." Because he liked it bagged. He didn't like clippings. And he was just a joy to be around, and the neighborhood's not going to be the same without him. That's for sure. And you guys are an institution in the neighborhood, so it's just been a real blessing to be around him all those years and everything. And every time I drive by, I says, well, Caleb's not here anymore, but we all loved him.
But we know where he is.
Yes.
We know where he is, and
Yes.
I know I'll see him again.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Michelle, his wife, I see you jogging by every single day. Hey, why don't you stop by? I'll jog with you now. Yeah, do that. Okay, promise. It's a promise. Good. Okay, who else? Darwin? Let's see, we've known each other since 1986.
Not
No?
quite that long.
That's when I got my license.
Oh, well, yeah, there's that. Hi, I'm Darwin Slaughter. I'll try to keep it short. I am not a minister, so therefore I can keep this under control, I hope. I met Caleb the most recent time I met him. I lived sort of around the corner down the street from where Caleb and Mary live. And I would take my dog walking over at the trail that was sort of behind their house. And that's where I ran into Caleb. And we walked many a mile over there together. Neither of us were, I used to be a runner as well, but neither of us were running by then. But we did walk, sort of a fast forward stumble, you might say. But he really liked my dog, and I think when I lost the dog, it hurt Caleb as much as it did me, because he always enjoyed the one trick that Ruger could do. Interestingly, I realized a few years ago that at the trail is not where I met Caleb. I guess we met there, and that's where I thought we became acquainted. But I happened to pull a piece of paper out of a book that I had in my den, and there was Caleb's name on it. I was in the real estate business for a long time, but before that, I'd taken a couple of courses trying to learn about real estate, and there was Caleb's signature on this piece of paper. He was my very first real estate instructor, and this was back in 1978, and I didn't go into real estate until 95, so it was a long time. So I was really surprised that we had been friends before. One thing he taught me, he talked about the jokes and things. Sometimes what he said was not necessarily a joke, but it came out that way. But one of the things I remember from that course, because I was wanting to get some rental property and learn about how to do that, and one of the things Caleb told me was, he said, you know, people will come to you as a landlord and say, Mr. Landlord, I don't want to buy a house for myself, so can I buy one for you instead? And you'll say, yeah, you can buy me a house, and that's what people do. And I thought, that's pretty good. So since 1978, I've remembered that. And when I was in the business selling, people would say, well, we don't know if we want to buy a house or not, and I would pull that out. Say, well, you're going to buy a house for somebody. You want to buy it for you, or you want to buy it for somebody else? Me. And so thank you to Caleb, made a little bit of money out of that one. We talked a lot, walked a lot, and he was just a really good friend. When I lost my lady 2 years ago, he was there and said good things and helped me through that, as did Mary. And so I'm certainly going to miss him. Last thing I have, there's, for some reason, these lines from a lullaby have been coming to me that I ought to share with you. It's a lullaby that was written by a man whose adult child was leaving home. In fact, she was moving from their home in Ireland to Australia, and he wrote a lullaby to her. And some of these lines just came to me, and I thought, well, I'll share them. And they are, excuse me, may there always be angels to watch over you, to guide you each step of the way, to guard you and keep you safe from all harm. And that's the prayer I have for my children, and for myself too, and for all of y'all. And I'm sure Caleb would have agreed with that.
Thank you, Rowan. Okay, you got your food ordered? Have they taken your orders yet?
Yeah.
They have taken the orders?
Yes.
No, I'm serious. Okay, well, we need to do that. Yeah, this is Caleb's. Are you second or third or fourth cousin? Second cousin. This is Caleb's second cousin. And he's also a professional guitarist. He plays
bass guitar.
What?
Bass guitar and teach guitar.
Yeah, you play over at the Grand Ole Opry, don't you?
Well, she calls it the Grand Ole Opry, but it was really the Grapevine Opry. The Grand Ole Opry is in Nashville. I hadn't quite made it over there yet, but yeah, I knew Caleb through my grandmother. My grandmother had a brother, and it was Caleb's dad, Cale, right? Was that spelled C-A-L-E or?
That's just a nickname.
It's a nickname. So he was Caleb also? Okay. I never heard that until now. So what I most remember about Caleb is when first of all, the alarm clock thing doesn't surprise me, because he always had a way of words, and only he could write an essay about a clock, okay? And put it in probably 450 words or something. That's Caleb. I do remember the Mongolian barbecue. We have a connection there because many years ago, this is probably 30 years ago now, he invited me to lunch, and we ended up at Chan's. It's a Mongolian barbecue place over in the mid-cities. So I already know I knew then that he liked it because I had not been there prior to that. And we've gone there several times since, so it's kind of his fault that we like that. But the most important thing I remember about him is his love for music. And the trumpet, it's one thing to blow your trumpet until the middle of the night. I still haven't, I never heard that from him, but I know that when we would go to his annual birthday dinner, at the end of it, there was several people kind of like this, and a song would break out. And before too long, we were all singing, and do you know this one? Do you know this one? And some of us had guitars, and I think we closed down several of those places because they ran us out. But I just remember he was a good singer. I never heard him play the trombone, but I've heard him sing a lot, and the singing was a gift of his as well. And I guess I always wonder where I got music from, but way back in our legacy, there was music, and I'm carrying it on today. So anyway, I'm going to miss him, and I know you guys will too. So, thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't mention he was an excellent singer. His voice was really, really good. Okay, well, I don't know what to do here because they were supposed to have taken the orders by now.
Some people got the order taken.
Oh, okay. Al, you gonna say something? Let me go find her while Al's speaking.
Hello, everyone. So, probably wondering, how in the world does this guy know Caleb? Well, it was through Mary. And how I met Caleb, Mary, you may recall this, was I think the first time we met is at a certain point, Caleb wasn't driving different times. And so Mary had asked me, because I know Mary and Dan and Tom and Peter, all of us through trading. And that's how I met Mary. And so through the years, we go to workshops and stuff like that. And Mary asked me one time, hey, can you drive me to a workshop? I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. So she said, come pick me up at the house. All right, cool. And so this guy comes out, and I said, he's probably checking me out. I'm like, who was this driving my wife to the workshop? I think that's what he was doing. And she probably checks, hey, Al's cool, right? So he comes out, we meet, and the first thing I figure is man, what a sweet spirit he has. And so from then on, and that was at the point where it was, Caleb was being challenged and getting around, but he would come to, Mary would bring him a lot of times to our trade meetups, CC's Pizza. And it got to where, Peter's laughing because this is pre-COVID, where Caleb would come in and he would say, where's my friend Al? And Mary would be up front doing what she's doing. And at that point, me and Caleb would be in the back just talking about different things. And I'm not paying attention to the trading and what's going on. Me and Caleb were just talking. And what were we talking about? We were talking about first praying about healing. We were actually praying sometimes back there on healing. And him saying to me, Al, I'm not afraid because I know Christ. And we would have some deep conversations back there about Christ. And so one of the things Mary had revealed to me, and she came out and she said, well, Caleb, she found out about my interest in biblical stewardship. I do a lot of that at my church. She said, well, Caleb wrote a book. And I have the book that was she had, and I brought it with me. And one of the things I told Mary, I said, I don't know what I was thinking. I never had Caleb sign my book. I was like, what was I thinking, right? And so one of the things is within the book, And whenever you teach about biblical stewardship, one of the first principles is you learn and you put in your heart is that you don't own anything. It all belongs to God. And so in the book, that's where Caleb starts when he's talking about we own nothing as believers. It all belongs to God. We're stewards. And he has a prayer of relinquishment. And I don't know if you probably have it memorized and knows the prayer, but when I was looking at this prayer, and one of the things he would have you do is you would read the prayer and you'd sign it. And I never was able to go to one of his seminars. We actually talked about him coming over to my church, but we never could make it happen to do one of the seminars. So you do the prayer of relinquishment, but the more I've read and meditated over the years, this was Caleb's life, and I want you to listen to it. Dear Heavenly Father, I acknowledge your ownership of me and everything I have. I cannot transfer anything to you. I can only acknowledge that I possess in trust, but you own. I hereby acknowledge my stewardship responsibilities and purpose to be found faithful in the discharge of my duties. I know that someday I will give an accounting of how I have administered your property. My greatest goal is to hear the words from your lips, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. And that's Matthew 5, 25 and 21. And I think that epitomized his life, Mary. He was faithful all the way to the end. And the fact that I should have been comforting him many times when he was sitting there back, to the end, he was always faithful to the trust that he possessed, which is the greatest thing. And if you all don't know, and he would have said, it doesn't matter anything about stewardship, biblical finance, if you don't know Christ, then you don't even have the foundation. He's sitting back there telling me about his faith in Christ. So I'll just leave that with you.
Thank you, Al. Mike?
So I didn't get to know Caleb.
First of all, introduce yourself.
Oh, Mike Douglas. I didn't get to know Caleb and Mary until much later. I actually met Mary, as like several of you here with the trading, and it was in the early turn of the century, 2000s, the more recent century. So Caleb was an afterthought. He would come and join Mary, and always entertaining, always an anecdote, always jokes. We'd be sitting at Nortel, they were still in business at the time, waiting to get our room for our meetings at this point. And he was always entertaining. Of course, it was the life is like a roll of toilet paper. It goes faster and faster at the end. I mean, that was the main thing I remember about him telling me. But the other thing he was always talking about, I didn't know his seminar history and all those things until I got to know Mary and Caleb better. But he said, I'm here for Mary. It's her turn to shine. Everything I'm doing is just to let her have her place in the spotlight. And right there you can see the kind of person Caleb is. Because he was there to support her and not outshine her in any way, shape, or form. And I'm sure Mary did the same under his wings for years and years as well. But it's just an amazing couple to meet, and I'm glad I had the chance to meet you all. Oh yeah, and Mongolian. My son and him both got me eating Mongolian grill about the same time. And I enjoyed that with them several times. We got them to try Thai. So we enjoy the Thai.
You and Patty have to go with me now for Thai.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. Would you mind sharing about your health?
Yeah.
Now remember, Caleb, the beginning of his demise, as far as health-wise, was that he fell backward down some stairs and hit his head. And that head hit caused the dementia. That's what they're saying from the MRIs and so forth. And that was the beginning of the end. Now, up until that time, he was a health nut. Now, we weren't always health-minded. Okay, Peter. My background, I was raised in Waxahachie, and I was raised by a father who cured himself of a lot of serious diseases by food. This was before food supplements and all that kind of stuff. So he was really convinced that food was the source of making yourself healthy. So my life, until I was 17, I never had white sugar, white flour, cold drinks, none of that, until I got married. And then we went overboard the other way, the typical American diet. And we ate out 3 times a day because we were busy in real estate. And we had luncheons in the morning, luncheons in the evening. So we really overdid it. He went to Cooper Clinic for a checkup. This was years ago. And they gave him about a 30-page dossier on his health. And they said, either you change now, when he's in his mid-30s, he said that you change now or you're going to die early. And he was 80 when he died. But he wouldn't have had that problem if he hadn't fallen. So watch out, use a cane if you get a little bit shaky. Don't let yourself fall. So anyway, but he was a health nut after that. And those of you who've eaten with us, you know what I'm talking. In fact, I think our neighbors won't even bring me food like desserts because they think we won't eat them because it has sugar in it. And that's probably true. But anyway, he was a health nut. So that's kind of what his story and his relation to Caleb was. So here, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm James Pujols, and I've been knowing Mary and Caleb for a long time. Back in 2014, I was having AFibs for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'd gone off to see 4 different cardiologists. They all came back with the same stupid diagnosis and the cure. But Mary went ahead and said, hey, let's go meet over at the Mongolian barbecue over in Irving. And Caleb's got some information for you. So he gave me 2 things, and he said, 1, get off of gluten. And the second was to, read this book, Is Your Cardiologist Killing You? And the answer to that was yes. So I went ahead and I did, and the book was by Dr. Sherry Rogers, and she was taught by Dr. Ray, who was at the Environmental Health Center here in Dallas. And I went ahead and I followed her oil change plan and followed the medicines and the vitamins and everything that was there. And in 3 weeks, I got off of 3 meds. And from then, those AFibs went all the way down to 0 by December, but they immediately stopped in 2 days after getting off of the gluten. So then, from that time, the number of AFibs and stuff really stopped over that time. So I'd really appreciate them introducing me to that. He led me to the water. I drank it, and I jumped into the lake of health. But also I'd like to congratulate Mary on the excellent way that she has maintained Caleb's health with minimal medicine and all the vitamins, and we communicate and converse a lot about that. So.
I will say this, James took what Caleb offered him, namely the book and some other materials, and he began to do his own research, and he's now become the guru. If I want to know something, all I do is call him. He probably knows it, or at least he knows where to look for it.
Right.
So,
I do.
So, and we've shared a lot of different, if I find something new and I think he'd like it, I call him or text him or whatever, and vice versa for health products and so forth. Okay, thank you, James. Yeah, the first time I saw James, he was sitting in the back of the class. He looked like he was really sick. You did look sick.
I was.
You were. Yeah, Jerry? I tell you what, it's so good to see all you guys. How long has it been since we saw you now? Months, a year.
Not a year, but several months.
Look in front of the camera.
I'm Jerry Irwin. I met Caleb and Mary at a financial seminar, and we went to those seminars quite a bit, but Caleb, like someone said, didn't usually participate that much in the financial seminar. He was more interested in talking about other things, and he told a lot of jokes and so forth. We went out to eat quite a bit after that, and he always liked barbecue. The place we went didn't really have the barbecue you're talking about, but that was the choice that Caleb always had, was eating barbecue. The one thing that Caleb enjoyed a lot was gardening, and he liked to eat the natural vegetables and so forth that you could raise in the garden. And he came over, and I had a garden at that time, and he came over and helped pick a lot of the garden stuff for me. I wanted to mention about Mary. I think you have done a great job looking after Caleb, even though he was in pretty bad shape during the end, but I appreciate that very much.
The answer to the comment on that was that I couldn't do anything else but take care of him, because he would have done the same for me. So I know that I could never put him in a home, let somebody else take care of him. Okay, is that everybody? And Butch, I haven't forgotten you. Butch Bentley drove up from, what is the exact name of the city you're living in now? Used to be a neighbor.
Yanis. Y-A-N-T-I-S. Yanis out of Lake Fork.
Okay.
Everybody fishing?
Fishing?
Many of them are probably familiar with Lake Fork then. Well, my name is Butch Bentley. I've known Caleb for, I'm sure, a little over 10 years or so in Irving. We were neighbors. In fact, we were neighbors for like 20 years before we even knew each other. But the first time I ever saw Caleb, I was at church. Pastor J. Don George was my pastor, and so many of you probably already know who Don George is, or was. He's been with the Lord now for about a year. But I remember Caleb coming to speak one time at Calvary Temple. And tall guy, very positive about what he has to say. And he was the kind of guy that I don't have to tell you. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to kind of fill in the gap. Everyone here has already experienced some level of... Am I too loud?
No, I need to interrupt you just a minute. I've asked Bob to take some pictures, so if you don't mind, he's going to be walking around the room taking pictures. I forgot to announce that. He hadn't done it because he didn't want to do it without your permissions. So everybody give him permission to take a picture. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm always interrupted.
Last week, we didn't get one picture of the whole group or even one person. So here you go.
That's
go walking around.
all right. So anyhow, I got to see him for the first time to speak, and I was pretty impressed with him. And then the next time I saw him walking around where I moved in this neighborhood, but I'd been there like 20 years. And I think he was jogging the first time around. And then later on, within a year or two later, he started slowing down. Then he started walking. But you can count on Caleb walking around. And if he didn't stop and talk with you, it wasn't Caleb. Because everyone, if you were out on the streets by the sidewalk, I promise you, he had something to say. And if it wasn't a joke, I'm telling you, he always had something positive to say. Caleb and I really kicked off really well. I was in broadcasting, Christian radio, for 27 years. KVTT in Dallas. And he'd said, well, yeah, I'm very familiar with you sometimes, that when we tune in once in a while. I don't know, but anyhow, we kicked it off real well. Caleb and I just really loved to talk about the Lord. I had a street ministry, and he always wanted to know about the street ministry. How many people did we lead to the Lord? How many people did, he always was interested in people's lives in some sort. I don't care if you were in the ministry. I don't care if you were a mechanic. Whatever it was, he wanted to know about you. Because he said, I'm going to pray for you. And the thing I liked about Caleb is that he was very genuine. He wasn't a phony. He wasn't a fake. And I didn't know of anyone that he never liked. And he's the kind of person, like I said, I'm speaking to the choir here. And the thing is that the great thing about Caleb was he could relate to anyone, no matter what nationality, what religion, what faith, what job. I mean, he could really relate to you. And he made an impact that I would like to make. It's kind of amazing. She has to do 2 meetings just to do this. But I know this much. If Caleb wanted to say one thing to you right now, if he could say, can somebody tell me what you think Caleb would say to you right now? If he had anything to tell you right now where he's at, what do you think he would tell you? I tell you what he would say. I want you to know Jesus. He's real. He's alive. And he cares for you. That's what he would want you and me both to hear from him. Because he lived a faith, a life of faith, not just from a biblical stance, but from a real personal experience with Jesus Christ. That's all we could ever talk about. Whenever we got together, Caleb just wanted to know more about what I knew about Christ. Tell me more about what you know. Tell me about your ministry. He even had me set up one time on a laptop. He wanted to read a book. Remember that, Mary? He really wanted to take his books and he wanted to put them on tape, and he wanted to be the voice. So I set it up, the computer, gave him the microphone, and told him how to record it and how to play it. And he realized it's a lot of work. And so, but he tried, and Caleb's always willing to try something, to do something good for everybody. And if he can enhance his ministry or his business in touching a life, that's what he wants to do. And that's what he would want you to do. If you don't know Jesus Christ in your life, he would give you that opportunity right there. I know he would. And he just says, Lord Jesus, come into my life, forgive me of my sins, and be Lord of all. I know that's what he would want anybody in his life that didn't know Christ. He would want them to know that. And the first thing he would want you to know is that he loves the Lord. Am I right? Tell me I'm wrong. Because that's not the Caleb I know. Caleb I know is he wants everybody to know the reality. Jesus Christ is real. He's alive. And he cares for you. And that's the life he displayed. To see these missionary ministry photos, and Mary, what you talked about, all the things that you did as a missionary, that's hard work. You have to know that what you're doing is genuine and real. And what Caleb did in life, in my life, was genuine and real. And that's what Jesus wants you to know, is that's who he represented. His whole life was to represent Jesus the Christ, the Son of the living God, and none else. And so I'm just amazed to see all the people that have come to know Caleb in his personal life and how he has made an impression, and not just an impression, but a permanent fixture of Caleb in your life. Can you say that? I say that. He's made a permanent fixture in my life. I'm very grateful to be able to know a man like Caleb. Thank you, Mary.
Anybody else? I don't want to keep someone from saying something when if they have anything. Last week, we had 2 waitresses, and they kept us well taken care of. Today, she's having to work out there, too. Al, could you check and see how the food's coming? Because I don't want to keep this too long. I think that if I were going to say one thing in the closing part here, and that we were talking about the priority and the fact that you have to find your priority, and whatever that is, keep it the priority. Slide. I was figuring out when I started doing a chronological thing with these pictures, we actually had 4 different. Okay.
Did everyone order?
I don't know. I didn't see. Did you see?
Did she get the order? Okay.
Everybody got food. Is going to get food that wants food? Okay. Okay. The fact of the priority is so important that we have to keep it, and it's something you have to maintain. It doesn't just happen. So, okay. Well, I'm kind of at a loss here because I don't know. Hi.
Hi. So food's coming down slowly but surely. I got a side salad with ranch. Anybody got that? It came with a veggie plate. It's coming on through here.
What's your secret sauce? For health?
And again, food out slowly but surely, y'all.
Okay.
What do you think?
This one turned out.